as a cover, if you're trying to imitate what's happening, it's gonna come across fraudulent every time. My Daisy will never be Eva's Daisy. My Jordan will never be Sam's, and if I start trying to imitate, it'll never make sense.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Hassiem Muhammad, and you are listening to The Actor's Instrument, where we discuss the essential qualities you need to stand out in the entertainment industry. Real quick, I just want to shout out a couple of folks who have DM'd me on Instagram to say that they're liking the show and it's been helpful to them. That's really cool. Keep them coming my way. I love to hear it, and I'm glad that this show is really making an impact for all of you. Now, if you're looking for the Broadway experience, then look no further than The Great Gatsby on Broadway. I'm talking lights, big dance numbers, and performances that seem to be larger than life. And joining me this week on The Actor's Instrument, we have one of the performers from the show who understudies not one, but two principal roles. Joining me today is Traci Elaine Lee, an actress known for her roles in Shucked and The Great Gatsby on Broadway, as well as the Ain't Too Proud and Beautiful, the Carole King musical national tours. Traci, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. So, happy New Year.
Yeah, I know it took us a minute to get schedules coordinated, so I'm really excited. I saw The Great Gatsby, so what I said before was not just me, you know what I'm saying? It's real, folks. I saw the show, and genuinely, my reaction was, "That's Broadway." Um, when
Oh,
people
yeah.
ask me about whenever I have people visiting from out of town, like, "Oh, what should I see?" I'm like, "Oh, if you're looking for something really artsy, see this. If you're looking for something that's just gonna rip your heart out, see this." And I'm like, if you want that thing that's just I've seen a Broadway show, I'm like, "Go see The Great Gatsby." It is that in a bow.
Yeah, it feels like people ask me all the time, I'm like, "It's a musical." Like, when you think of a musical, this is what you think of, in my opinion. Like, I've gotten to do, a couple of jukebox musicals, popular music, music like Shucked that's very, specific to a genre, but this is like a musical. All the bells and whistles, the fireworks, the pyro, the dancing, the sequins, musical.
And fun fact, I don't do musicals. I'm not a competitive singer, as I tell people when they ask me why not. And but I one of the first plays I ever did in my life, I was in middle school, and we did a rock and roll Midsummer Night's Dream.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it was
Oh,
midsummer, but with all these rock songs thrown in,
okay.
and we had a golf cart on stage.
Oh.
In hindsight, that's probably a terrible idea because we were in middle school and, one of my friends was driving the golf cart as we're, dancing around and stuff, and she's
What?
doing her choreography and doing the loops. I mean, we pulled it off, but again,
Whoa.
would I make that choice as a director? No, but it was a lot of fun. Um,
Right. Give the middle school kids the keys. Like,
yeah, so, middle school, Midsummer, Great Gatsby on Broadway, basically the same thing.
yeah, one and the same.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
You just mentioned Shucked, which was your Broadway debut in 2023, is that correct?
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a
What
year
was
ago, which is crazy.
I know, that is crazy. It's almost a year. What was that? April, March or April?
Yeah,
That
we opened end of no, top of April of
heard.
last year. Mhm.
Yes. So we're getting there. Um,
Yeah.
and you were a swing on Shucked,
Yes.
and now you're
Yes.
in the ensemble. So you do perform every night for The Great Gatsby, and
Mhm.
you're understudying two principal roles. What are those two experiences like from swing to on stage cover?
It's crazy, but I think they feed into each other. So swinging, and Shucked, I covered the whole female ensemble, which was, 4 tracks, and then, the principal, track, which was Maisie, our lead of our show. I got to do it a ton. I was also the associate? No, assistant dance captain. Um so to understand the full picture of the show and to cover all of those tracks definitely went hand in hand for Shucked. I do not have that responsibility for The Great Gatsby, and I'm grateful for it. And but I do think a lot of my experience being a dance captain and understanding the full picture of dance numbers, of blocking, of transitions, knowing that absolutely helps me be a cover, especially on stage because I don't get to see the show night after night. So, I've been an onstage dance captain for most of my for all my productions except for Shucked. all the ones that I have been a dance captain on that management side, and, jumping on stage and getting to originate my own track is really cool, and being able to cover 2 leads, in Gatsby is a lot of work, but it's
Yeah,
I welcome that work.
I can imagine, I can imagine.
Yeah.
And could you just quickly, from your perspective, how would you distinguish, like, swing from understudy? Because 'Cause they're both kinds of covers. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, so as a swing, I covered the ensemble tracks, and as an understudy, um, I cover a principal role. So, I guess technically for Shucked, I was a swing and I understudied Maisie, the lead, and here I am on stage every night, so I only am an understudy for Daisy and Jordan in The Great Gatsby.
Heard. Yeah. I just thought
Yeah.
that'd be, like, cool for our audience, for those who are maybe not sure or new to the business or
Yeah.
whatever, just to understand that there's a difference, a different level of responsibility.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
yeah, because now that you're an onstage cover, like you said, it's not like the thing where like, "Oh, I'm waiting for the call." I mean, in some ways, but regardless, you're on every night.
Oh, yeah,
You have to
whether
go
or not
perform.
I'm singing solos or not, I'm putting on eyelashes for a 7 o'clock go.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And I didn't get to see you when, because how can we time it? I didn't get to see whenever you took over for Jordan or, Daisy, but I found a Reddit thread where people were singing your praises.
You oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to, like, run from the internet because it can
It's a
be
crazy place.
debilitating as like, you put your heart and your talents in front of 1,400 strangers night after night, and you're like, hope it sticks, like, sometimes just because the person who does it every night isn't able to do it, doesn't mean you are 100% ready to do it, but you're like, "Okay, let's go, we're gonna jump in," and you just hope that people have a good experience at the end of the day, so to I'm so happy, thank you to the people on Reddit. I'm glad I gave them a great experience, but that's oh, man, I haven't seen them.
Yeah, I was just trying to, like, double check some of your credits and, you Google a person and all kinds of things come up, and it was, like, Reddit, and it was like, "Oh my god, Tracy was so good. I got to see her when she went on." And then somebody
Oh,
else was like, "Yeah,
wow.
I got to see her when she went on." And so, like, it's pretty cool, yeah. So apparently
Wow.
you did a great job.
Well, thanks, Reddit. Maybe I'll
Um,
Google. Maybe.
and it's funny because you mentioned, like, sometimes, you know, it's a great honor to be able to go on and cover somebody, but it's stressful. Um, I had my first contract as an understudy this past last spring, I guess is a way to say it, last spring, and I was not a huge fan of the experience.
Yeah.
It's and it's one of those things where people ask me, they were like, "But, like, when you went on, wasn't it, like, exhilarating?" And I was like, "I was so stressed." And I fully accept it's a me thing. I'm such, like, a perfectionist, and, like, I just wanna be as prepared as possible, and I didn't get the call. I was, like, using the bathroom and then on my way to the theater when I got the
Mhm.
call.
Ooh,
So, like,
yeah.
no, like, I didn't get to spend the morning walking through my track and, like, just going. It was like I was on my way to the theater. Sorry, I got a text.
Yeah.
Got a text,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, so and so's out, you're on." And I was like,
You're like, "Can't
"What?
be impossible.
That's crazy."
Impossible. I'm not
Um,
here yet."
and the person I was covering was the dance captain,
Alright.
who had a solo that involved a few splits. So, it's one of them things that, like,
Yeah,
you're
you're
like,
like,
a little advance notice would have been great, but that's the job. Like, but that is the job, and, um, I'm somebody who embraces challenges, and it was a totally different experience and a really cool challenge to take on for sure.
Yeah, that you're so right with that. That is the job. The first time I went on for Daisy, I was at 96th Street on the A, and it was 12:30, and I was like, for a 2 o'clock show, I got a text that
Ooh,
said, "Hey, she's out, and it's can we do a show today?" And I was like, "Mhm, okay, yes." And my mom in
uh-huh.
Texas, hey mom, was like, "How come you didn't tell me?" And I was like, "I found out at 12:30 on the A. How would you have gotten here
Okay.
from Dallas, Texas? Impossible." And you're right, it's impossible to guess. Sometimes you can, but then that's a crazy guessing game, and, like, do you wanna live like that? We have lives outside of it, but you've gotta you've gotta, like, be in the here and now, otherwise it's like you drive yourself crazy trying to predict it, and I so identify with the, like, you wanna be as prepared as possible, and especially because there is this element of the audience sits down and opens their playbills, and they see that white piece of paper in there that says such and such is out, and people save their money. Broadway is so expensive. It's wild. And you save your money, you travel from different states, you travel across the country, you travel in from New Jersey. And to see a certain person, and if they're not on and having to take the day for themselves, I'm like, I've already disappointed them when they got their playbill. And then you're like, I just wanna bring my all to it, and it's like, if I come at it from that perspective, I'll never succeed. And it's like, okay, I have to, like, take the time where I can get it to make sure I'm as prepared as I can be. Like, last night I went on for Jordan, and I had not done that since December 12th, so, like, nearly a month, and I was like, "Okay." But every week, first show of the week, I go and I change, we've got our traffic. You change your clothes at the same time, you change your wigs at the same time, and I carve out pockets where I can to sit in a corner by myself, and I say the scene as they're saying it on stage. So I'm like, that's a little different rhythm, okay, but great. I know all the words, I can say them if I needed to in front of strangers tomorrow. So I start my week off, by myself in a corner in my ensemble track in the pockets that I can find, and I say the words. So I'm like, "Okay." My mouth has the muscle memory, so if my brain starts thinking like it's a crazy split track or, people are being swung in as we speak on stage, I'm like, "Okay, I can at least have the muscle memory of the words in my mouth." It's such a game that you've gotta, like, figure out a strategy.
Yeah. No, and that's really that's a cool look into the process. I'm glad you brought that up about, like, your methodology to making sure you're staying on top of it. Because as we both just said, like, you could literally get the call or the text, you're on your way to the theater already. I know I had a discovery when I went on, which was because of because of the nature of the play, I was also like an onstage cover. Um,
Wow.
so there were parts of the principal track I covered that I'd never seen.
No, that
And,
part.
like, just the way that it kinda worked out and the way the stage was built, like, even when I sat backstage to watch, I couldn't see, and then it was kind of like a dark lighting setup, and so when I'm, like,
Mhm.
in the green room watching on the screen, like, there was there's, like, 2 whole scenes that take place literally in silhouettes.
Oh.
And so, like, I remember going on and I was like, "Wait, where does he stand for this?" I'm like, because
Right.
I'm like, I know the scene, like, the lines was honestly the easy part. That was like I knew that months ago. I was like, "That's
Yep.
not I'm not concerned about the lines. Where does the brother stand?"
Is he on 6? Is he on 8? Where are we
Okay,
going?
right? So that's
Yeah.
like a whole other wrench. Is there does it have you found that it gets easier now that you've gone on a few times? Like, do you feel a little less pressure when you're in your corner going over things, you're a little more chill, or is it still like doesn't it's still like, "Man, this is so different from just being able to do it every night."
I think there are, like, phases and stages to that. Like, I think there's, like, a an a blip of time where it's like, "Great. I'm confident in knowing the roadmap." Maybe that comes with, like, the first 4 or 5 times, whether that's in a row or interspersed for a couple weeks, maybe even months. And then I think there's another chunk of time that's like, "Okay, this is my version of this." Because I feel like, as a cover, if you're trying to imitate what's happening, it's gonna come across fraudulent every time. And, you can sing it, you can say it, you can find the rhythm of it, but it's you until you start to live in it for yourself, is it the true authentic, voice of that character, and that authentic voice is never gonna be like, my Daisy will never be Eva's Daisy. My Jordan will never be Sam's, and if I start trying to imitate, it'll never make sense, and so, the roadmap I've gotta follow is truly, like, she goes from the couch to 5, stage left goes around this pillar and stands on 0. That's the roadmap I'm talking about, but the, like, living in it and, like, allowing yourself to, like, let your shoulders drop, let your neck release, let yourself, like, take a breath before you say something and really feel it, like, that's the chunk of space where you're like, "Okay, I am actually in a spot where I feel like this is feeling okay, like, this is feeling much more comfortable," and I think I've kind of found that. I think I've, like, got 25 of each, principal track under my belt at this point or something like that, and I'm like, "Okay, now I feel comfortable to do my version," which is not gonna sound like the recording, it's not gonna sound like, the whatever, slime tutorials are everywhere, but, like, it'll be my version and it makes sense to me, and I think that's the most authentic version I can give to any audience.
And that's honestly, that's the beauty of theater. It's like the script is gonna be the same no
Yeah,
matter who picks it up. Like, you guys originated the show, but it'll be done again in the regions, on tour, revived in 20 years, whatever, you know what I'm saying? It's like
yeah.
that's not gonna change, but what changes is the people who get to step into it, and I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the magic of it, like, nothing else is like that. No other art medium is like that,
yeah,
you can't hit play on a movie and it's a new cast.
right.
Um,
Yet
even, like, the way certain jokes land is very different.
mhm,
I mean, oof, we felt that in Shucked night after night. I mean, the whole
mhm.
script is jokes. And, like
Right, right.
and,
Yeah,
like, to hear a different person step in and we're like, "Oh, I love how they do this," like and it takes nothing away from the original, but it's, like, how cool that you found a pocket or a new joke or a new take on it or a new delivery, a new way in to the material that only sets right on you, and
yeah,
it's really cool to hear that and see that over time and immediately.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, is there any fear of getting stuck in, like, the understudy box?
Whew, I've been having this conversation with myself. I've been going into my
Mhm,
little prayer corner. I
and
say, "Okay, Imma whisper these things over
mhm,
here, and then Imma
mhm.
go to work."
And to be fair, I know I'm kinda it's kind of a personal it sounds innocent, but it's a deeply personal question. It's like, where, because I'm basically saying, like, "Okay, where do you see your career going like this, or do you see it going like that?"
Yeah.
But I am curious, like, I think it's a conversation I've had with other people who've done the cover thing, and, like, just curious where you're standing on it.
Yeah, it's so interesting because we have I mean, we have an arsenal of incredible swings in our building, and covers in our building, and one person in particular is like, "No, I love being a swing." Like, I
Yeah.
love the challenge, I love making the ship go, I love being put in different spots. Literally, she was in a track we in a heel as a heel, she was in a flats track yesterday, saying lines no other healed track ever does, and I was like, "You how did you know that?" I say the lines opposite that track every night in my ensemble track, and I was like, "I couldn't tell you what he says." I'm like, once my lines are done, I'm like, "Okay, take it away." And I was like, "Wow, I'm in awe of her," and then I also go like, "Great, every challenge that I've been able to have and in my short tenure here on Broadway the last 2 years has given me a different skill. It's proven to me that I am capable. The things that I'm like, I think I have a good brain to be a swing, but it'll take the right show for me to do it. I don't particularly think I'm the highest singer. I'm not going to say I'm anybody's best actor or whatever, but I know that you're not going to outwork me. I'm going to work real hard. I'm going to work to make sure I get whatever it is right. If I accept the job, I'm going to work at it continuously, and that's only gonna make me better for the next opportunity. And to kind of have like, "Okay, great, I did the swing thing, cool. Um, great, I got to be a lead for the first time in a Broadway show, like, how special is that?" And I got to, like, prove to myself that, like, "Okay, I understand comedic timing." And then now this one, okay, you can be on stage and navigate 2 other tracks and figure out how to set up my day to day to be able to do that and jump in last minute, mid show, whatever the case may be. And Yeah, now I am really finding that, like, yeah, that's the challenge that I want is building something, for on my bones, shall I say, building something on me, um, as a principal track. That's, I think, the next step, and I have only here recently been like, "Yeah, maybe that is something that I want." And to want it is different than feeling like you can do it. Like, I feel like I can because I have been covering, and I feel like yeah, and whether that's 8 times I have not done it 8 times a week, but if I'm if that's the job, then I'll find a way to do it, and I think speaking it and journaling about it and actively seeing it and seeking out those opportunities is very different. And my word for 2025 is application. And I'm like, what if I like applied myself to the things that I actually want? I've been so afraid to dream, which seems crazy to me saying it, but I'm like, I haven't even let myself be like, hey, I want to be on Broadway. I'm like, if it comes, it comes. But if it doesn't, I'm still an artist. I'm still very much so a creative type. And now I'm like, okay, yeah, I want that. So like let's open up some space for those creative opportunities to come, and let's also like work towards it. Like how do I take those steps? So yeah, what a thing. So now I'm like holding myself accountable. now
Okay,
that we're now that's on the
it's
podcast.
public now. Everybody knows your dreams.
right.
No, I listen, I truly appreciate you being vulnerable. It's and because it is kind of scary to be like I not just like want more, but I mean, now we're talking about like the height of one's career as an actor in the theater. You know what I'm saying? And it's a lofty
Yeah.
goal, but also like you said, like you're fully capable. Um,
Yeah.
Now before you were a Broadway performer, you were you were a Texan
Oh yeah.
and your mom is an actor as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Heard.
I got bit by the bug that way.
Heard. And how did she react whenever you said that this is what you wanted to do?
Oh man. I love telling this story. So, like, really, like, my dad's a bass player, not by trade, but man, the man can play. And, he always gets so nervous and hates when I say that, but, "Oh, well, sorry, dad." But my dad's a musician, his brother's a musician, my mom's a performer, like, and everybody around us is absolutely a lover of the arts and music. So, I've grown up around it, which is awesome, and, like, music of all kinds and genres and things. So we've always loved it. We've always had a great speaker system so that you can always play the music and it sounds good. Um, so I grew up loving dance. It's my first love. I grew up loving the arts. I grew up being in my mom's rehearsals. Um, and I loved as a kid to be like, that person's not doing that right from yesterday. Yesterday, it was on the left foot. They're still going on the right foot. And I would just sit there as a 9-year-old with my headphones on and my CD player with my anti-skip protection. And I'd act like I was listening to something, but I was like, I'm actually watching it and I could get up and do all those dance steps myself. Um, and my mom was like, she's a theater kid. She's gonna come in and she's gonna sit and she's gonna be to herself and do her homework and listen to her CDs and watch rehearsal. And I'm so grateful that those, theater companies let me sit in because I loved and I still love to this day the process. Like, I love to see how the sausage is made. Like, I love to be a part of that. And, the theater that I grew up in was the first, theater I performed in. And yeah, and they had a summer musical theater camp that I went to, and it was just kind of a fun thing that I got to do, and I also got to, um, be a part of this Christmas show that my mom was doing, and my dad ended up playing the bass for, and my sister had just gone away to college, and my mom said, "You gotta find something for her to do. She's gonna burn the house down if I have to leave her at home." And so I got to be Rudolph as a kid, for the Christmas show, and then when I got too tall, I ran crew, and that's, where I loved it because I knew where everything was. Um, and when I first started to be like, okay, I think I actually like performing. And my mom was like, great, you're going to keep running crew so you can better understand and have a greater appreciation for what this is. So for the next couple shows, that same theater let me run costumes and props and wardrobe and pull sets in and push sets out and all of those things so that I had a wider appreciation for what it is that makes the ship go, makes the machine work. And she was like, "Until I want you to make sure you have that foundation before you feel any of the warmth and the applause from the audience, because I can't do what I do without them." And so, she was really doing it. She really was in her bag with that because I to this day, I'm like, I see a new crew member on deck, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm Tracy." And they're like, "Oh, I'm just a sub." And I'm like, "Great, what's your name?" "Hey, Paul." "Hey, Paul." So anytime Paul comes back, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, hey." I'm like, we literally, as performers, as actors under the lights, cannot do it without them. And so, um, that was my mom's first reaction to, "Hey, I wanna do this." And then once I was out there, she was like, "Okay, well, well, she's here."
Well, it's funny because I always said that, like, I would never, like, push my kids, if I do have them, I'd never push them into the arts, like, it's too hard
Yeah.
it's too hard of a thing to tell somebody that, like, they have to do. It should be purely by choice and desire and passion. Um, I think that's such a cool I've never heard that before, like, that's such a cool angle that your mom took. It reminds me of very recently, Golden Globes, Colin Farrell, when he accepted the award for Penguin, and he
Mhm.
thanked a, Crafty member by
Yeah.
name, and everybody on, like, threads is like, "Oh my god, Colin's a man, like, he remember this crafty person's name,"
Yeah.
and on some level, you're like, "Oh, that's kinda basic," but people who are in the industry understand, like, that's such a huge deal for a
Yes.
star of that caliber. I mean, really for anybody, but particularly a star of that caliber to remember somebody who served them lunch, and so I think that's really admirable that your mom was like, "Before you feel all the warmth, like, you gotta do this other thing first." That's
Yeah.
great.
It I think it completely set me in a spot like, people in any company that I work in will be like, "Tracy knows their name. Who's this person on?" And I'm like, "That's such and such." And I'm like, "It's you gotta learn people's names because you're right, it's such a basic it seems like such a basic thing, but you'd be surprised at how many people skip that step, and it's just like, "Oh, this person does this for me." And it's like, "Yeah, but that person has been here longer than me and will be here after I leave."
That part. That
And
part
they
is
wash my underwear. Like, like,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like that's a lot.
yeah,
And it's the least anyone can do to just say, like, "Thank you," and appreciate them for the work that they do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, something else that the internet told me about you
Uh-oh.
is that you went to school in Texas.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm looking and not to tell everybody your age, but I mean, you're a young person, but like,
Thank you.
um, but you graduated college 2013,
Mhm. I
Broadway
think that's right.
debut 2023,
Yeah.
10 years.
10 years.
10 years. I've heard before from a lot of people, they're like, "Oh, it takes 10 years to really like make it in this business." And I just thought that that was like, wow, what a just a real world example of like literally like from the time you graduated to say, I'm going to do this to your Broadway debut, which is not the end of your career, but
Yeah.
a big step forward. Um, what was those 10 years? What was that like to continue? I mean, I know you were working. Sorry for the people. It's not she didn't do nothing. Like you have you have credits. You were working in you were working at theaters in Texas
Yeah.
and you did the tours as well. But yeah, I'm just curious. Like those 10 years, like what did it take for Tracy to get to Broadway?
Well, I love that you put "made it" in air quotes for those people who cannot see. Um, the 10 years to make it to Broadway or make it in my career is like, yeah, but, like, there's so much more and more exciting things to do. So, like, while the dream if your dream is the big Broadway, that's fantastic, but know that you are also just as talented if that's not in the cards. Like, go okay, great. Back to your question. The 10 years every step of the way prepared me for to walk into that debut and to be like, "Great, I've got my feet on the ground." The 10 years, I worked actually pretty quickly out of college. Um, I got to work in Austin immediately. I'm from, like, Dallas area, and then I went back home for 2 years, and I worked in a great theater community that raised me. There's a lot of good theater in Dallas, Texas. Um, and so I worked there consistently, and I did a show called Stagger Lee, which was a world premiere at Dallas Theater Center, and we had a lot of people in from New York, and they asked me we became so close. We were together over the holidays, and someone looked at me and said, "Okay, so what do you do after this? Are you moving to New York?" And I was like, "No. No, 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 no. Like, no. Uh, my mom has worked here and made a career here for 20 years, at the time. No, I don't have to move. Like, New York will always be there if I need to go. I don't need to go." And they're like, "Okay, so do you have a job after this?" And for the first time in that 2 years out of college, I was like, uh-oh." And I made the leap in 2 weeks' time, the decision, and somebody in that company needed a roommate, and I moved to New York in 2 weeks. And I don't think if I had any more time, I would have ever made the jump. And from there, I kind of just took it, like, little step at a time, like, one little step at a time, and it was, "Okay, let me get the auditioning under my belt. Let me understand how that works. Okay, the goal is just to go in and do what I prepared. Okay, great. I'm proud of that. I deserve ice cream." Like, "Oh, okay, like, okay, now I'm comfortable with going into the room. Let's get a call back. Great. That's the goal for this." And thinking back in those 10 years, that has really let me see the country in a way I did not expect to see the country, um, on tours. That has let me step into dance captain jobs, and that has led me to other regional gigs and shows that have brought me back to Texas, which I always say I will always go back to Texas. If I got a job, I will always come home. Um, it's allowed, like, the timing of things you really can't argue with, um one of I've had a couple of very, special experiences regionally that Broadway debuts are great and Broadway shows are amazing, but nothing will quite ever feel like Dreamgirls in 2016 at Dallas Theater Center. Nothing will top it, and it was something that happens in a bubble that does not run for years, cannot run for years, cannot run past 4 weeks if you get that, and it's like those gems along the way in this 10 years have brought me people that have pushed me, people that have said, "Okay, you knew that you had this job 6 months ago, and you're gonna start training for it now? You're too late, but you can start training for the next job." And, like, those pockets of wisdom didn't happen on Broadway. Those prepared me for this job. And it's like, "Ooh, okay." And, like, not even just, like, I read a book about it, but, like, in practice, in, like,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
real world
yeah.
application, like, "Oh, wow, we're gonna have to wear cat suits in Dreamgirls, but I had this job 6 months ago, and now Imma do a sit-up. Uh-oh. Uh-oh." Like,
Right,
that "ooh,
right,
ooh" does not connect. So
right.
like, everything is always it always works out and it's fine, but it's also like, "Okay, how can I best prepare for the unknown?" Which is kind of impossible,
Mhm,
but it's like if
mhm.
I'm operating at the level I expect of myself, then, like,
Mhm.
the second those opportunities roll in, I'm gonna be fully prepared.
Yeah, that such a great story, and what I really love is that you framed it as those 10 years prepared you for, we'll say, the breakthrough.
Yeah.
Um, because I think that it's so easy, and I'm talking to myself here, to get frustrated, like to get frustrated about the journey. It's not moving at the pace, or you haven't booked the thing that you thought you would have booked at this time, or your birthday comes around and you're like, I'm not where I want to be. And,
Mm,
I didn't
mm,
graduate 10 years ago yet.
mhm.
I'm only coming up on 7, you know? And
Mhm.
so for somebody who's been in the game for 10 years to just be like, "Oh, all that time was preparation." I just love that frame. I'm gonna take that away. I don't know if anybody else gonna take that away from this, but I'm taking it away that, like, the time in the intermediary is the preparation
Oh, yes.
for the thing that one day you will do. Um, so I love that.
Yeah.
N Yeah.
That's the game, is like, and then because even being here now, I'm like, "Okay, great. What is next?" And it's not to, like, escape right now Gatsby world where I'm at, but, like, it's like, "Okay, but, like, something else is gonna come up, and I still need to make sure I'm operating at a level that is sustainable and not gonna burn me out, but also that keeps me ready." And if that's a class, great. Let me find a class on my day off that, or on a Monday that's in the afternoon, that won't interfere with rehearsals. And, it's hard to carve out that time, but it's so necessary to fill up your artistic tank with tools and resources and outlets that are creative, and things that, like, allow you to rest in a way that actually lets you rest. And, like, that builds up your resources and stuff.
Now, speaking of your artistic tank, I've
Okay.
I've got one last question for you, which is, what is the defining quality that you bring to the table that sets you apart as a storyteller? What is it that makes
Wow.
Traci Elaine Lee different from everybody else?
Wow. What a question. What is it that makes, I mean, how are any of us really the same? Like, okay, this is me asking questions to myself. Maybe that's what sets me apart. But, like, I feel like the thing that makes us so similar is that we are artistic types, but I think I'm only as creative as if I'm in a creative space. Like, I'm at my best when I'm, like, around people who are more creative than me, maybe? Mhm. Okay, go with me. Like, I wanna be a sponge is what I'm saying. So, like, I wanna be in the room, there it is. I wanna be in the room with people who are who have different ways of thinking than me, and that challenges my creativity. Like, I'm constantly looking to be pushed by the person I'm standing across from on stage in front of 1,400 strangers. Like, whether that's the person who does it every night or if it's somebody I've actually been able to rehearse with. Like, I wanna go into the room and go like, "Great, how am I gonna grow from this?" And I wanna get it wrong. I wanna get it wrong again, and I wanna get it wrong again so that when it feels right, it feels good. And you can go like, "Oh, we are chewing today. We are eating today. Today, this is it." Like you can feel, like, the nights where everyone's kind of on autopilot, the rehearsals are on autopilot, the run-throughs, and then you can feel when it's the right potion of, like, the audience that is, like, geared up on another level. They've had dinner, they are fed, and they had a nap that day, and they
Okay.
are ready for a show. And then you can tell when the cast is like, "Okay, let's go. Like, this
Yeah.
is for us, but, like, this is also to share this with them." And you can feel it, like, buzz on your skin, in your veins, and it's a full level up. And I feel like that's gotta start from being open to leveling up. Like, I can't go in feeling like I know everything, and so I don't. I go in and I go, "Let's get it wrong." And if that's in an audition, that's in an audition. If it's in a callback, it's in a callback, but I've gotta be open to criticism to move me forward. I've gotta be able to fail forward. So, I think that's what sets me apart, is, like, I'm not ever aiming for perfection. If it's not authentic for me to cry at this moment that the person who does it every night cries, I'm not gonna try to cry. if I get moved to feel emotions, then I have to work those out in front of people, but I know what the moment is, I understand how this is gonna go, and if there's something that interrupts that, then I'm gonna say yes and to it, but I've gotta be open enough to say, like, "Ooh, okay, I really liked how this person really just pushed me, so Imma go right back at 'em." Like, I've gotta be a sponge, and I've gotta be open to failing forward, and I think that's what sets me apart, is I'm not afraid of getting it wrong,
Yeah.
and if
That's
I'm
what's up.
like there might be a video out there of me crickety cracking and crack-lacking through any
Uh,
number of songs, and I'm like, "Yeah, well, there's
no,
always the next time."
I think that's a really, really valuable trait, to be a sponge, to fail forward. Um, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Traci, I know, like I said before, that schedule's tough. You got a show tonight. Um, thank you so
Well, not
much
tonight,
for oh,
tomorrow.
what's today?
We have
Today's
a
Tuesday.
weird schedule. We're Wednesday through Mondays.
Oh, I
So
know. Okay, yeah, I know
Tuesdays
there's a couple other shows that are dark on Tuesday.
yeah,
Heard.
yeah.
Well, then in that case, rest up. Okay, enjoy your night off. And now I don't feel so bad.
No, not
And
at all, not at all.
no, I'm just kidding. But regardless, thank you. Thank you. I know you stay busy, so thank you for carving out some time. For the folks listening in from New York, or if you're planning a trip to New York, if you want that Broadway experience, like truthfully, go catch The Great Gatsby on Broadway. Traci, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, and thank you for this podcast, thank you for this outlet, thank you for sitting here and letting us just yap about the real, 'cause it's hard out here in these streets, but it's fulfilling when you get to do when we get to do anything that we love to do, right? And to talk about the real of it, the long and the short, the in between, the 10 years, the journey is a gift, so thank you for sharing that. Thank you, my friend, for having me.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, well, you'll love a recent interview I did with Victoria Kress of the Osbrink Talent Agency. Thank you so much for tapping into this week's episode of The Actor's Instrument, and shout out to our co-producers over at Red Letter Entertainment. We'll be back next Tuesday. Till next time, y'all. Peace.